Hey everyone, I'm your host, Robbie Straczynski, and thanks so much for joining us on episode number 37 of CardsChat, the friendliest poker podcast in town. Today's guest is a player who has conquered both the online and live realms year after year. She has over $6.1 million in online tournament earnings, not to mention copious amounts of cash game earnings dating back to her days as a multi-time Supernova Elite player. In the live realm, she's a three-time WSOP Bracelet winner with over $5.1 million in tournament earnings. She's gone from being the ultimate grinder to a three-time reigning, defending GPI Female Player of the Year. Plus, she's a Party Poker sponsored pro. Kristen Bicknell, welcome to the CardsChat Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I would say it's quite the introduction. It's a mouthful, but dang, you've really accomplished a lot in that career. It's pretty amazing.
I appreciate it. It still feels funny hearing it all, to be honest.
It's cool to be able to look back and hear, it's like, yeah, I did that. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So, obviously 2020 was a year where poker players had to pivot their games from live to online. And for you, that's, again, as per the introduction, it's a pretty natural transition because that's where you first made your name online. So since the pandemic began, I checked, you've got $1.4 million in tournament cashes, and you won your third WSOP bracelet. So with that in mind, how has the last year been for you?
It's been interesting. It was definitely not what I had planned for the last year. My plan was originally just to kind of keep up the pace that I had for 2019, which was hitting every poker stop and focusing on live poker and all the live tournaments. Kind of because I recognized that was something that I would be phasing out as I got older. And I was really excited to kind of push myself. And so it was a little bit, things didn't go as expected. So you had to adapt. Right. And I would say that looking back, I'm actually quite thankful that the year went the way it did. I don't mean that. I mean that with the utmost respect of who it affected negatively. Sure. And of course it did to some extent. There's lots of negative effects, but I think that as in life with any, unplanned circumstance kind of ruining your plans that you have so much to say, is that there is sometimes this positive side that you come out with, that you realize, like, wait a second. For me personally, it was a time where it was pretty much that I recognized I don't really necessarily want to do what I thought I wanted to do. And I like being at home, and slowing down is better for me. And maybe I need to slow down. And just putting kind of, what's important to me in perspective, and giving myself a minute to kind of stop and think about that too. Because I think that that's something, generally, I think a lot of us, we're just so busy in our day-to-day lives that we don't necessarily do that. And you get disconnected, and maybe to some extent, think that we're working towards one thing that maybe we don't even really want to work towards, if that makes sense. So I think that for me, the last year has been, slowing down, which, to be fair, has been difficult because online poker has gone crazy, that there's so many great series to play. And it feels like as soon as I kind of push for a couple weeks online and say, okay, I'll take a break, someone's announced a new series. So it's been kind of crazy that online is just, really kind of boomed in its own way. So I've definitely had to use some discipline, and, I'm kind of exercising that even, this week as I speak, of when do I book these days off? And that's always been a struggle with me, because I love poker and I love pushing myself. And this year, I would say I've really gotten to tune with what I think the best pace is for me, and trying to slow down, take some time off, focus on, family and friends and that kind of thing. And
that's pretty good. It's a good sort of a silver lining to the cloud. And, we always say in poker, you got to change gears. It's almost like life is sort of circumstances beyond our control, forcing us to sort of change gears, and how do we adapt?
Absolutely.
So
absolutely. I never thought I'd be playing, when I was 18 years old. If you would have told me when I was 30 years old or 34 years old that I'd be a professional poker player, I never would have thought that. Things, we have to go with what we're given. kind of similar to poker. And
Right.
yeah, but that's a perfect way to put it. The silver lining.
For
Yeah.
sure. Okay, you already mentioned it. You're talking about 30 and then 18. I think before we get a little deeper into your more recent results and the stuff you're up to today,
Yeah.
I think it's probably a good idea. Let's go back to your poker origins, and I think a lot of our audience here in the Cards Chat community can relate to that. On
Yeah.
your bio page on a Party Poker, your first time playing was an all-nighter with your friends in university until 11 a.m. That sounds awesome. Tell me
Yeah.
about that game. What was it at that game or that all-nighter that kind of hooked you in and poker swept you away?
Yeah. I had literally not even known any of the rules or anything about Texas Hold'em ever. And it was just, I was going to university for something that, I felt like I had to go to university after high school. And I think it was about in September or October that this happened, that a roommate suggested we play poker. I said, I have no clue what that is. I always knew that I had a little bit of a competitive side when it came to games and things like that. I would be the person that, if we were playing a board game or whatever it is, it's, I really enjoyed mental games, if that makes sense. I can't think of anything particularly, but always loved playing games with friends. So I was like, okay, fine, let's play this poker game. And for whatever reason, I think it was a combination of the people I was with. We were all competitive and all took it seriously. And I don't know, I was just fascinated by poker, and I thought that it just was it was almost like this light bulb went off in me that it was like, whoa, I didn't even know I had a passion for this. And it was like a switch flipped.
Mhm.
And I remember the next day getting poker books like right away.
Wow.
And just being like so single focused on poker from that moment on. It was like, I fell asleep, woke up, and I was like, wow, wanted to learn more about poker. And yeah, I got my hands on books. And I can't remember who it was, unfortunately. I wish I did. There was like a PDF book that I was reading, and the people who introduced me to the game, they were kind of a part of this community I was in Ottawa, Ontario, and there was like home games every week and some underground cash games. And yeah, my focus I was so passionate about it and just thought it was such a cool game. And it's one of those things, it kind of reminds me of golf that, when you're first starting out, that learning curve is so steep and you can feel your progress like so quickly, and so rewarding to me. And I think that's what's so cool about poker is, you improve your skill and you kind of see and feel the results. I think that's, and you feel your mind kind of expanding your perspective on the game. And yeah, anyways, from the moment I learned it, I was just fascinated to kind of keep playing. And I think I just love the kind of like mental battle that happens at the table. It's just so fun to me. And we had very competitive games. This group of people who I learned with, we were arguing about rules and this and that, and kind of, your typical poker setting.
Sure.
Yeah, it was fun.
Were you a winner right away?
I think, to be fair, yeah, I think I kind of was. I definitely had moments where I think when I started playing on PokerStars, playing tournaments, it didn't go as well right away, but I mainly stepped into cash games and then little home tournaments.
Sure.
And I was definitely winning at those. And I would say probably how I built a bankroll at first was playing the cash games. And yeah, I just kind of figured it out.
Nice. Well, definitely winning helps bolster the confidence there.
Absolutely.
At what point did you, like you said, you got into it, and that's fine. A lot of us get into it, recreational players like myself as well. At what point did you sort of say, okay, or did you realize, hey, maybe it's even possible to do this for a living, and maybe I want to become a pro and do this full time?
Yeah, I think it was kind of a slow progression that maybe I was never a person that was planning years ahead, so to speak. Not that I'm living just for the day, but I was certainly just so enthralled in it. I think that there was a moment that sticks out is I was in a poker tournament I guess I had joined it before class. Maybe I had a class at 6 p.m. or something like that. And then I couldn't make my class because I ended up winning. It was the first poker tournament I won online.
Right.
And I feel like the story is familiar, but it was this feeling of, wow, I just won like $20,000 in a day. Why am I going to class for something I don't even care about and I'm not interested in? And then that kind of slowly shifted of opening doors and seeing the potential that is there in the poker world. And, that was just, I think, a $11, $20 tournament that I happened to win. And it was like, wow, I can move up and push this even further.
Sure.
And I think as I explored, online poker definitely opened a huge door in that. And as I met people who, I remember Turning Stone Casino. They had, when I was 18 years old, they had all these tournament series. And I met people who were a little bit ahead of me too, that they had, had pretty substantial success in the online poker. And so I kind of got to see the potential that was there. And then it was like, wow, I want to do this. And didn't question in my mind. I felt very driven.
That's very cool. So you never actually had any other real job, so to speak?
Not really. My parents, they own a family-run business that is building race cars, actually. And so I've worked, helped them out with their business here and there as I was growing up. And I was a hostess at a restaurant for maybe a few weeks and it didn't work out. But that's it. Yeah.
Do you sort of feel like you missed any sort of experiences, or are you just happy you never had to go through all those sorts of odd jobs and finding that you found your calling right away?
I think there's pros and cons. I think that there's probably a lot of skill sets, or maybe even just having appreciation of, the freedom and flexibility, or rather the responsibility of being disciplined that poker players have to have, because we label it as freedom, but I actually think that within that is like a really substantial responsibility to be disciplined and understand that, that's something I'm learning even to this day, that the more disciplined I am, the more freedom I actually have. And if I just act as if, I don't give myself any structure, all of a sudden I'm actually not in this place of necessarily freedom to enjoy, but you get trapped in this kind of, it's hard to find the word, inertia of, I feel like I see this a lot with poker players who lack, structure and discipline. So I think that that's one thing maybe I could have learned from, another path that I think that I see for people that I know that went, a more traditional route and then shifted to poker. They have those instilled in them a little bit better of understanding, like, oh, circadian rhythm's important.
Right.
Doing tasks that, I don't necessarily like, treating poker like a business. That's actually one of the first poker books that I had read.
That's Dusty Schmidt, right?
Yes. And I think that a lot of poker players, we stop doing that because it doesn't feel fun to do accounting. It doesn't feel fun to treat poker like a business because it's fun and it's competitive. And to be fair, poker's very mentally taxing. You have to take a lot of energy just in poker. So it's hard to do the other stuff, but the other stuff's important. And so I think, going back to your question, I think if I had had a more traditional job that kind of taught me those skills, instead of having to learn them on my own, because I think that it was kind of a process to learn that like on my own time. And, it happens as it happens, but I think that, I could have used some guidance, because in a way, as a poker player, you're just, you're a business owner, you're left to your own and you're not accountable to anybody a lot of the times. So it's
you could fall hard if you're not careful. That's for sure.
Absolutely. And we see that all the time. And it's very interesting. And I think to me, it's fascinating when I look back to the people I used to play poker with, 14 years ago or 10 years ago, and you see the people who are still here. And I think that a lot of what has kept people in poker over that long time is these skill sets, the discipline, and treating it like a business. So
A lot of insight there. People listen to that
yeah.
answer. Replay the last minute or so. A lot of insight to gain from that answer.
Yeah.
You mentioned Turning Stone. So when you started out,
Yeah.
you did play both online and live, and you had some results starting with those, the $200 tournaments, the $500 tournaments. I think it's like a couple hours away from your hometown in Ontario, something like that. Okay.
Yep.
So you crossed the border to play in New York, because back then you used to need to be 21 years old to play in Niagara Falls, and that was like 15 minutes away. So is distance to a live poker room, is that one of the reasons you mainly played online to start?
That's an interesting question. I think a little bit of that, but I did have where I was living at the time, we had pretty nice underground games that were running, and they ran tournaments a couple nights a week and cash games. So I played there a lot, but I think the online was appealing for, these massive prize pools, like the Sunday Million every week. It's so exciting as a 20-year-old, and the opportunity to win hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Even as a 39-year-old, it's pretty
exciting. Absolutely. I'm excited for every Sunday.
Yep.
So, the Sunday tournament poker schedule is exciting. And it's those massive prize pools that kind of lured me in, and just the ability to kind of play whenever, wherever, laying in bed. I don't know how many times I was laying in bed playing a sit and go and fell asleep. And, it's just, there's something very comforting that online poker I don't know how to explain it, but I'm grateful that, in my early 20s, I found it, because it was just so interesting to me. I got to, use my mind and kind of have something to always do. When people say they're bored, I've never experienced that.
Wow.
Really.
That's a blessing, I think.
I think it is. I think it really is. So, and I have poker to thank for that a lot, because there's always poker to play.
I've asked in the past, a few high rollers, people who play, for high stakes, such as yourself. I said, would you ever want to go back, and relive those, those 1, 2, 2, 5 kind of days, right? The answer pretty universally is no, right? Because
okay.
Would you? Well, so first let's hear that answer, and then I'll ask the follow-up.
I often say yes. I wish I could, because the sense of when something is, the magic kind of fades a little bit, if that makes sense. The feeling when I was 25 years old, walking into the Bellagio, playing 5-10 for the first time, or, when I was really starting to build some like substance of a bankroll, it was so rewarding and empowering. And, that thrill, I don't think is the same anymore. And I think as you move up to the high roller area, like as that's the place to progress, it's just different. And I think, for one thing, those at this point, it's like my emotional control about poker is, I would say, pretty solid, in the sense that I'm not feeling high highs, and I'm not feeling low lows, where I really felt that. And I think there's something fun in that, of feeling like, actually feeling really excited that you won 4 buy-ins. Whereas now, and you see it, when you watch a high roller event and you see the winner, accept the trophy, they're not as happy as the recreational player who just won the main event. It's just, there's something, it's like it's almost so far to the other side that we are treating poker so much as a business, that kind of fun is lost. And I try to keep it, like I really do, but it's difficult to. And I think that for me, that kind of initial buildup, I was so motivated, the sense of satisfaction, and of course, I'm starting to realize this, I just need to adjust my goals to kind of get that motivation, but it's just not the same. And it was really fun. And it was also fun playing, as this unknown girl walking in a poker room, and people being like, who is this girl? And like, what are you doing? And, if I played a little aggressively or whatever.
And how was she playing 5, 10, 10, 20? Like, where did that bankroll come from?
Yeah, it was fun. And I think that, one of my a memory that comes to mind is going to EPT Prague for one of the first times and sitting down at like the biggest cash game going. And it was a really cool feeling because I could tell the people I was playing against were so confused because female presence in the poker room is very rare there anyways. And I think especially in the game that I was playing. And it's so fun to, I don't necessarily want to say trick, but like, to me, it was just fun to be like, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm not, some girl who doesn't know what she's doing. And I felt, very confident. I had just played, 15 million hands online. I was like, I know, you're not going to make me feel uncomfortable, but I could see that I could make them feel uncomfortable or them be like, I don't know what's happening. Cause I think girls play tight, but she's really aggressive and she just showed a bluff. It's like, those moments are so fun.
Right. Like you said, I can imagine incredibly empowering.
Yes. Yes.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
So let's go, I think it's a little bit earlier than that. This is the follow-up. So in your earlier part of your career, let's say 2007 to 2013, before you walked into the Bellagio, you're focusing on crushing online, becoming the supernova elite. Tell me about those 15 million hands, the beginnings of Chrissy B24, the ultimate grinder.
I mean, this is what I think. I've had some Twitter interactions recently, or I've seen comments sometimes about under posts of myself. And it's something that I don't think people realize is I was, just battling out 50 cents a dollar and 1-2 online for years. And I wasn't the top reg whatsoever in those games. What happened was I saw the potential of poker. I believed in myself. I basically had no bankroll. Right. And I was determined to make it work. And I remember learning about Supernova Elite. Let's just say this is maybe in October or November. I was probably, maybe I had a $5,000, $10,000 bankroll, something like that, playing tournaments online. I was frustrated. I don't think that I had the skill set to play tournaments very well, to be honest. Like, I think I probably, whereas in cash games, I kind of got away with being self-taught. I think in tournaments, I didn't study enough to really do well, honestly, looking back. I don't think I knew that. I didn't know this at the time, but I was frustrated with tournaments and I hated, I would go play cash games and I'd consistently win. And then I'd play tournaments and I'd go deep and then lose a flip, whatever. We all know how it goes. And I was just really frustrated with tournaments and never getting that. I was like, when is it going to come, that win, Mm-hmm. And it just felt like I was breaking even in tournaments. I found out about Supernova Elite. I knew that, I felt pretty confident in my cash game skills. My results were pretty good. I spent a summer playing live cash 2-5 and I tracked my results every day. And I had a really good summer at that. Found out about Supernova Elite and I said, okay, I have $10,000 bankroll. I figured out how many hours I need to play in a day to get it. For anyone who doesn't know, you get Supernova Elite, you get about $100,000 in rake back. I think actually it ended up being worth about like 120, 130 at the time. So to me, $100,000 a year, I was like, that's amazing. Like, whatever job my parents think I might be able to get is going to be half of that,
And that's even if you're breaking even, you still get it because you qualify with the points.
Exactly. Exactly. So I knew I had the work ethic. I was like, I can put in those hours. I love playing poker. To me, that's not a struggle. It's actually fun. So I figured out, I have to play X amount of hours. I'm going to be super organized. I remember it was New Year's Eve at my friend's house. And I kind of announced like, I'm doing this challenge this year, starting tomorrow. And a bunch of people saying I'm crazy and I'm not going to be able to do it. But I took this $10,000 bankroll, started at 50 cents a dollar. That first day probably put in 10 hours. I had moments where I made a lot of mistakes in the sense of playing really long sessions that went bad. Then like the mental leaks kind of come out where I had to, then work on that. But anyways, ended up moving up to 1-2, sometimes playing 2-4, but mainly just stuck at 1-2 for, I think 2 or 3 years. But, I think even the first year I might've lost a little bit, but I definitely profited $100,000, which felt incredible.
Yeah.
And, that's when, to me, it it was literally 10 hours a day grinding out 24 tables of 50 cents a dollar. And because at that point you got points for just folding hands. So I was playing really nitty, not playing great poker for sure, playing standard ABC poker, 24 tables, 8-10 hours a day. And then just kind of went from there.
Break even plus, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So
wow.
It was cool.
Definitely good for its time. And also you get a couple of years, you know, you're making over 100,000 a year. That's a pretty darn good living, you know, especially by any 20-something-year-old standards.
Yes.
At what point do you start saying, okay, time to, you know, take my 3 racks of high society and take some shots in Vegas, play the WSOP?
It's a good question. I have to actually think for a second to remember how this all played out. I know Black Friday happened, but I'm Canadian, so that didn't affect me as much. I guess what happened
straight to Saturday. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. PokerStars, I think they changed the Supernova Elite format, if I remember, or maybe took it away. I can't remember what it was, but it was going to be much more difficult. And I certainly at that point was, you know, I wasn't signing up for playing 10 hours of poker every day or 8 hours of poker every day. That's exhausting because people don't understand. When I say I was playing 24 tables for 8 hours, that doesn't include sitting out to go to the bathroom or going to eat. So it ended up taking me probably a good 12 hours to get the 8 hours in, you know, even loading up tables and stuff. So that's like, I didn't want to go at that pace. I'm trying to think I think what happened was a gradual shift in playing cash games on other sites. And maybe I had some tournament success, if I remember correctly. I know that when I won the ladies event, that was kind of, I don't know if you have it up. I don't know what year that was.
Well, we're getting there, right?
Okay.
2013 is when you won the ladies event.
Yes. So you know what? That might have actually been the year I was still grinding Supernova Elite, if I remember. And I think I got bitten by the tournament bug with that win. And I realized, you know what? This is really fun playing live tournaments. There's nothing more fun. And it's like live poker tournaments are a drug. 100, like a very strong drug.
Confirmed. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I started realizing I really like this and I want to explore that. And I think I slowly kind of shifted away from grinding Supernova Elite. So I was like, I don't want to be a rakeback grinder anymore because that's effectively what I was. I was just playing for rakeback. And maybe I want to play tournaments more. They're a little bit more fun. I won a package. I remember winning a couple satellite packages to EPT Monte Carlo. So I went there. And EPT Prague. And I remember feeling frustrated because I was in a spot where I couldn't play the 2K, the 5K. I couldn't play all the events. I was just, I remember I final tabled the ladies event at Prague or something like that. I think I won these ladies event packages to go to the EPTs. And I remember feeling this like intense, I want to be at the top. I want to be in all those events.
Right.
And that's kind of where it just started of, okay, I'm going to focus on that. And here we go.
Well, let's take you back to that 2013 win in the, it's a 1K ladies championship, WSOP. That's actually your first WSOP cash. That's pretty amazing. I can imagine the high, $173,000, the bracelet. You kind of just sort of feel invincible, like, queen of the world.
How did I feel? This is true. It's a long time ago, believe it or not. Yeah, I think I just felt it kind of renewed that spark in the game for me too, right? Like that passion that I had that first night, it was like, let's go. There's, bigger fish to fry, so to speak. It really felt like that.
Very good.
Yes. It felt like, you know what, I can do this. I think it, obviously anytime you win a tournament, your confidence goes way too much up because there's so much luck in a tournament. Like without a doubt, I was so incredibly lucky to win that. And, the human mind, we think that we're in control of that. And that, a lot of it, you just get overly confident.
Sure.
And that confidence is just, I always had that I wanted to battle. I never felt intimidated. I always felt like I want to be there. And amazing. I think for that, it was just, to me, that tournament just represented like that little spark of like, let's go further and see what I can do. And, I think I just wanted to be in a spot where I had the opportunity to play everything. It wasn't even about necessarily the money. I just wanted to be in there competing. I didn't like the idea of sitting out a tournament. I hated the idea of going to a poker stop and, oh, I can't play the main event. I can't play this event. I don't have the whatever, whether it's selling action or the money myself to put myself into it. So for me, it was just, I want to be there. I just want to move up.
I have to pause and reflect on something. And
Okay.
I have to say, from having interviewed so many players, what you're saying, I've heard almost universally from men, but you don't usually hear this from women. And I know we have so many women in our Cards Chat community who are hearing this, and I can't help. It's so inspiring, and I can only imagine what they're feeling right now. Like, wow, to hear a woman talk like this, and like, yeah, I could do it too. It's really, setting an incredible personal example, and just good on you. It's really, really great to hear that. You just hear the confidence in your voice, and that's just really fantastic. So thank you for sharing that.
I appreciate that. And one thing I'll add to that always sticks out in my mind is I had those moments when I first went into a casino and I, played a hand really bad and was embarrassed or things went poorly. But I had those moments of like, wow, I owned this guy. Nice. And what I tried to do is focus on those moments. And I learned that I had to embrace the fact that when I sat down at a poker table, I'm underestimated. And truly embrace it and truly use it as my poker edge, because it is. And you hear men say that to women all the time, like, oh, wow, you're lucky that you have this. And I understand when women react in a way of feeling like it isn't an edge, like that it's actually a burden that you're carrying. I think that's true. I completely understand where they're coming from. It is true. I remember feeling like I wish I could just dress up as a guy and fit in and blend in. And I had those moments because it's a different experience. And I think for me, I hated feeling underestimated. So I just took that emotion and I was like, fueled it, used it as fuel to, I'm going to prove you wrong and I'm going to do this. And I knew I don't know. I just always had that kind of, I don't believe that just because, you're a man or whoever you are necessarily smarter than me or better than me. I can do this, and I've had, again, there's always the moments of this guy, if I'm playing with, I'm not going to say names because I don't want to boost their ego in case they hear it. I'm kidding. But, if I'm playing with Stevie Chidwick, he's a better poker player than me, 100%, and I surrender. You're better. You've spent way more time than me studying this game. But I can still handle, and that's what I think. I talk to Alex about this sometimes, is we both realize at some point with poker, you have to realize whoever you're playing, if it's, whoever you think is the best poker player in the world, when you're sitting next to them and you're playing against them, they still only have 2 cards, and in one hand or even 100 hands of poker, just playing your best, it's not going to be like some crazy disaster that sometimes we build up in our head. Like, oh my God, I feel so stupid, or I feel all of this, I've worked with mental game coaches from the very beginning. I would say probably 2 or 3 years in, I found Jared Tendler, I think I worked with first. Yeah. And without a doubt, if you want to succeed in poker, especially as a female, because there is a different mental barrier, I think, highly recommend. And, it's a muscle. We can work on this. We can work on, I'm trying to think of the podcast I heard recently. But, we all have our own burdens to carry, right? And it's sort of like a religious background, but just carrying that cross and carrying it, with strength and pride. And I think that, it's maybe a far analogy, but I think to some extent it's just true.
Yeah, well, I can definitely, I can speak to those sorts of emotions and understanding that. Got to give the shout out to Jared. He was episode number 35. Always a good opportunity to let the folks know. Go ahead and listen to our back episodes. We got 3 dozen of them. And I will also say as well, whatever your image may be, man, woman, you see this from seniors and they say, it's only a number. I know how to play. Why do they think I'm old and slow? So whatever your image is, just turn it around, use it to your advantage. Yeah. So it's cool to hear that.
Absolutely. And one thing, now I'm just going on tangents, but I think this was really powerful is if you talk to any male, and I'm sure you can relate, there is not one person in the world who walks into the poker room for the first time and doesn't feel a bit nervous or a bit uncomfortable when they sit down at that poker table.
Yep, I
We
remember
all
that.
feel that,
Sure.
you know? When you're watching the high rollers, I guarantee you over half the field is battling this mental thing, right? So I just think it's an important thing to remember that, you know, male or female, everybody's dealing with, you know, some level of poker is intimidating. Poker is a mental battle, you know?
Yeah. So we talked about your first bracelet. Let's jump ahead to your third bracelet, which you won last summer. It was online. What was that experience like for you? You know, winning a bracelet online is also your biggest ever online score. Does that bracelet almost mean a little bit more to you than the other two?
That's a good question. I think it's less exciting, if that makes sense.
Because you're not surrounded by a crowd while you win it.
Yes, yeah. And it's, you know, the first time you do anything, right, is that magical kind of experience. The first tournament that you win is, I don't know, it just has its own unique magic to it. It definitely means a lot. I just remember the day was quite funny that my session was going quite bad. I was playing 10 tables or something and nothing was really going well. And I was definitely feeling frustrated. And then, at the breaks, sometimes, I'll talk to Alex and we're like, oh, how's your session going? I'm like, no good. And then I remember being like, well, I have one pretty good sweat. We're getting deep in this. And then all of a sudden I was like, whoa, wait, this is actually a lot to win.
Right.
And it's hard because when you're in a tournament with hundreds of people, winning just feels so far away. So it was, and the structure was pretty quick. I ran incredibly well at the final table. It was very shallow and I was, I just was lucky in many situations, whether it just be that, I got some shoves through or whatever it was.
But you put yourself in a situation to be lucky. Don't forget
this is true. This is true. I appreciate that. And I think, it was just, to me, it was just kind of a highlight or kind of positive moment within, this kind of weird year that we're having. Cool. But it definitely, to me, those kinds of wins just keep me going, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Is there something, I mean, it's always a little strange to me. I win, if it ever happens, I win $100, $200. Hey, I'm thrilled and I celebrate. I'm a rec player though. As a professional, you win a bracelet, I always say professionals say the word K, not $1,000. Do you do something to celebrate a win like that, or is just on to the next one?
Well, I actively work on that because it's definitely not my nature to necessarily feel poker's so weird and poker tournaments are strange because when you have those hands that you sucked out or you got lucky or maybe you don't like how you played the hand, I'm pretty hard on myself. So I will feel, and this is something I work with mental, Elliot Rowe and Jared Tendler of, okay, I get lucky in a poker tournament. How do I stop that stupid voice in my head that says I don't deserve to win anymore? So I'm battling this sort of personality, I guess, or these kind of thought patterns that I have. And I think as a pro, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to play perfect or, a lot of pressure on ourselves. So anyways, the way that I do celebrate usually is, and I remember this moment specifically, is calling my best friend and just ordering. We ordered from probably 5 different restaurants from Uber Eats. So cool. And then it became a tradition of we have a big day and just doing a full buffet.
I love that.
Being completely, just indulging.
I love that.
Because there's nothing better after poker than food. I don't know what it is. But it's the binge after a poker tournament is incredible.
Yes.
Right?
I'm laughing because I'm not really a tournament player at all. I play cash games. And if I have a good cash game, my celebrations, I'll take my family out to sushi dinner, and I always rub it in a little bit because we're my friends. So I was like, hey guys, make sure you thank Mo, Morris, Kenny for tonight's dinner, so.
That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah,
I love
but it's
it.
the truth, like you just, it's
Yep.
the time to celebrate. I like that stuff. That's good.
Totally.
So you've got tons of caches. Look at your Hendon Mob, tons of flags everywhere. Where is your favorite place to play poker? Is there any sort of special, place in your heart? Oh, I can't wait to go back there and play again.
Well, right now, I feel like the World Series main event is just something so special and unique. And I've never went too deep in it. So I feel, well, I know this, ever since I started playing poker, one of my poker goals, I guess I haven't achieved yet, is going deep in that. I mean, I would love to final table it, obviously. That's like everybody's dream.
Sure.
But to me, that's, one spot I can't wait to get back, to have that opportunity to play that again. And there's something great about Vegas. I think that the World Series is fun. You bust a tournament, you get to go to the Venetian and play another one, or, you can go here and there. There's so much poker. So there's something special about the World Series, 100%. But I think beyond that, and it's so difficult for me because when I go on a poker trip, I'm just there to play poker. I'm not very good at doing both of, okay, I'm here to play poker and be a tourist, because to me, it's like I get so focused in what I'm doing. And if there's a tournament running, I just want to be playing it. I don't want to be, sightseeing.
There's only so many hours in a day, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I have always, one of my favorite trips, I'm not sure if it was because it was one of my first ones, is Prague. I love Europe in general, actually. So, even going to like Cyprus just came to mind. I thought that was a really fun, unique place to play because the culture felt quite different.
Yeah.
And I love the food there.
Yeah. That's my neck of the woods. It's about an hour's flight from me here in Israel.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. So I'm really intrigued by the culture, actually, of that area. Cool. So I would say that is now, if I was to pick poker trips that I really like, it's going to cultures where I can feel something different, even if it's just a dinner break or something like that. Even going to Macau is really cool because I felt like you really felt, a difference in culture there. Yeah.
Nice.
So
One other question. And before I forget, also, you did mention the Elliot Rowe. He's episode number 20. Got to give the shout outs where they do. Every time we name drop. So we're going to keep on mentioning.
I like it.
Yeah. One of the questions we love asking our guests here on the CardsChat podcast is, who is the friendliest player you've ever competed against in live poker?
Okay, she just came to mind instantly. Maria. Can you say her last name, because I don't want to butcher it? Lemplop. You know who I'm talking about?
Yes.
She won the PCA.
Opolis. Hold on. After Opolis?
Yes.
No.
Maria
Lamperopoulos, I think.
Yes.
I think that's
she is by far the friendliest poker player in the world. She's amazing. Like, she actually, and I'm friends with her. And I remember her actually saying the one time, it was actually the ladies' event. She had a hand versus her friend Anna. And she was saying how she didn't know who to cheer for, because she was like, and I know that experience. If you're like, wait, I don't want my friend to lose, but wait, if they win, then I lose, and I don't want to lose either. And yeah, she's so friendly and sweet.
That's great. That kind of, that's why we asked that question. We call ourselves the friendliest poker podcast in town. That's the nature of the community. We see any one of our community members succeeding, hey, got to root for them. And
awesome.
That's a pretty cool one. Your two best results on the WPT, there's a 7th in the 2017 Fallsview Poker Classic. And then you got a 5th at Playground in Montreal in 2019. How special is it for you to play and be successful in not just your home country, but like, really just, in your backyard close to home?
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, there's, I don't mean to sound negative. There's a lot of bad feelings towards both those events, because I remember the Fallsview one, I lost aces to kings for all the chips. And then in Montreal, I got kings to aces. But so again, and that feeling of, I'm only happy if I win, which is, I know I just shouldn't look at it that way, but I really want one of those Canadian events. That would feel great. And it's funny because I do feel an added, I'm not sure if it's necessarily pressure or what it is, but in both of those deep runs, I felt a little bit more nerves than I felt
Really?
before.
Did you have like more of a hometown crowd there rooting for you?
Yeah, I think so. And especially in Niagara Falls, I'm 10 or 15 minutes away from my parents. I remember I went deep they run like a 2K and then the main event. And I went deep in the 2K, and my mom actually like came to the casino to rail for a little bit. Yeah, and I think just when there's a lot of people that I know and a lot of friends around, it kind of heightens that.
Interesting.
Which can sometimes channel it, I think, into nerves in a good way and bad way, but maybe sometimes they've got a little too high. But anyways, yeah.
Well, just pretend you're playing online next time and then you're good. Right?
Exactly. I know. Poker is such a mental struggle.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've gone this far in the show, and I'd be remiss. It's kind of impossible to ignore the other half of poker's power couple that you comprise. You did mention Alex Foxen, the reigning 2-time GPI Men's Player of the Year. I imagine, Kristen, that you've had other relationships before. Can you describe how it's different being with a fellow professional high roller poker player versus just a regular nice guy from outside of the poker world?
Sure. Well, funnily enough, my Alex won't listen to this, so it's okay, because I don't want to make him feel bad. But so I was with my high school boyfriend for 10 years, and we were the ones who found poker together. So, and I'd say me and him there's similarities within my relationship of me and Alex and me and him, just in the sense that I think we're a really good team and supportive of each other. So I don't really know what it's like to be in a serious relationship with anyone who doesn't play poker.
Oh my goodness.
But
wow.
Yeah, so I think, and I really enjoy it. I think that, when people say, oh, maybe you should be with someone who doesn't play poker, or things like that, or you hear that sometimes within the poker, that people say, oh, don't date a poker player. And to me, I actually think that that's such a disservice, because I'm so grateful for just that ability to be with someone who understands. And Alex specifically is, he's so, and has always been so respectful of, whether it's that we're discussing a poker hand or, I don't know. He has such a great attitude towards the game, in the sense that he would never be the one to say this is right or wrong or make you feel bad. And I think sometimes in poker, it's difficult, even if you're hiring a coach, to not have someone who speaks to you in a way that feels condescending.
Sure.
Or, and it's just such a unique thing that, I think of times when people say, oh, I finished 5th in a poker tournament, and then my girlfriend was like, oh, that's amazing, you won this much money. But whereas a poker player understands, actually, especially at first, it's a very negative experience for most
what
players.
happened? Why didn't you win? Right.
And for most players, it's like, it's actually, I'd say a little bit for me at least, and I know for Alex, like not winning and being very close to winning can be very traumatic. So you don't actually necessarily, I think we can be better at saying what the other person needs to hear, or at least emphasizing having why can I not speak? You know what I'm trying to say? Yes, for each other in a way that's really nice and special. Sure. I don't know. So I love the idea of, traveling and kind of doing it together is just,
Well, it's a lifestyle. It's, the hours you keep each day, and not just, your topics of conversation. You'll throw, it's, I want to play credit card roulette for the bill, and all these sorts of things. It's cool to have someone who understands you on that level.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, on multiple occasions, the two of you have simultaneously final tabled various events. The most recent one was just a couple months ago at the Venetian. I'm just kind of wondering, what's that dynamic like, both sort of in that moment and then after the event?
Well, in the moment, because we all know the controversy that happened the first time we final tabled together.
We don't have to talk about that. No.
But what it has done is sort of created a level of discomfort. That's for sure. A little bit, unfortunately, because prior to that, actually, we had made a final table together. Before that, it was a 25K in Barcelona. I think that was our first one, which was just fun. It was like, oh, this is so cool. We came here together. We made a final table. It was the beginning of our relationship. it was just super fun. There's something that feels, it's like that aspect of shared experience, because whether it's, you know, any final table that you have, it's like there's I don't know, just being there and understanding all, you know, everyone's watching every hand that's played, and you understand the dynamics that are building between one player and another player, and being there to like really share that with someone is really cool. It's you know, luckily I feel like we're both in a position where and we've never, I mean, Alex, coming from his background of like being such a insane sports competitor, he understands competition, like, you know, and in football, it's like he can go, you know, rip someone's head off and then understand they're still best friends and 2 seconds later. So he has, you know, absolutely no hard feelings. I've kind of, you know, my dad's a professional race car driver. I used to race go-karts. So I would race against my friends and then, you know, go hang out with them at night. So I've always understood and been very good. I think both of us are very good at understanding we can compete and there's no hard feelings within our relationship. Right. So it's to me it's just fun.
After the event as well, like
well,
who
after
finishes
the
ahead
event,
of the other, you know?
Oh no feelings like that.
Okay.
I think that ultimately it's like, you know, we want to come for, you know, 1 and 2. After the recent one, it was, you know, a lot of as I was saying, we're not necessarily happy with 5th and 7th place. So it was a lot of like, oh, this hand, that hand. And that's what it really is like we get to have someone to kind of just like talk to someone about everything who was there and gets it. And that's kind of cool too, to have that perspective of someone who's like, oh, I saw this hand, I was right there, and I've witnessed, you know, I've played with all these players and we're all seeing the same dynamic. So I could go ask a different friend about a hand, but they're not going to be able to give that insight that Alex could give me, because Alex was actually there and played with all of these players
and knows the circumstances and the tells and everything, for sure.
So to me, it's like this really incredible learning experience. Cool. Of being able to have that, like, because, you know, you might talk to a friend or competitor, you know, at the final table, but when you get to go home with them and spend hours talking about it. So I think both of us just have a good, healthy mindset of like, we want to play our best, make the best decisions, you know, outplay everybody the best we can. And so it really just, you know, at the end of that tournament, we just came home and discussed all the hands and, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. And
it's almost like it's the rare occasion, like, you know, you'll remember a few things about the hand, but forget one detail and he can remind you of them, or vice versa. Right.
Exactly. Cool. It's really cool. So final tables that he's not at, you know, I might forget some spots that come up, or he might point out a dynamic or a tell that someone has, or a tendency that somebody has. So that's really cool too, to sort of like discuss with that a little further. Yeah. So it's an amazing learning opportunity.
Do you guys ever sort of like play heads up for doing the dishes or who's going to take the garbage out or something?
Never. I did that with I did that growing up. So me and my high school boyfriend, we used to do that because that was who we both found our passion for poker together with. And he, me and him just, you know, we learned the game together, and we would do that for sure. You know, we would sit up and play heads up all night, you know, but at this point, turns, right? At this point, I think for me and Alex, it's like when we're going to play poker, we need the stakes to be high, I guess, so to speak. Like, it's not that it's not fun anymore, but what's fun is competing at a really high level. So I think that, I don't know. And
the garbage and the dishes don't do it for you. I get it.
I've played enough poker now that I'm like, if I'm not playing to, you know, use my mental energy to compete, I want to be doing something different.
Gotcha. Well, you know, the WSOP, they announced they're planning on a full schedule this fall, you know, September 30th through November 23rd. Can we expect to see you there playing the full schedule?
Absolutely. Yes. Okay. I think it will be probably one of my last World Series that I'll like go really hard on potentially.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Actually. So
I at the time of this recording, they haven't yet announced, you know, which events, but let's say, you know, they'll probably have some similar events to what they had in past years. Do you have your eye on a few in particular?
I mean, as I said before, the main event is the one for me, is definitely, I, unfortunately, being Canadian, still have like tax issues with the US.
Yeah, so, but you got great healthcare, so it's fine.
Yes, this is true. So I'll try to play. I'd think I'll focus on, probably the events that are like $5,000 to $10,000 buy-in range is like my sweet spot. If there's a heads up event, that would be great. I definitely would want to play that. I feel like, I've only got to play, they had the 10K heads up. Maybe I've played it twice or 3 times. Yeah, I think I cashed it 2 years ago. I won, I don't know, 3 or 4 I can't remember the exact stats, but so something I never really said is on that kind of route to building my bankroll is I used to play heads up sit and goes, and I love heads up poker.
Okay.
So to me, heads up poker is just like the truest form of poker. So I love playing heads up. So I would love to, if I had one tournament they could bring back, it's like that NBC heads up poker, whatever it was. I want to see that come back. Yeah. I feel like we should have more heads up because I think that could be really fun. And I think those were great events.
Well, there's a lot of heads up duels going on these days in the Poker Go studio. So, if those folks are listening, Kristen wants to play, give her, she's got next.
That is true.
So before we get into the community questions, just one final question from me. It's a little bit of a big one, and it requires a little bit of reading from me. So you can get your little drink of water. Recently, you tweeted a thread discussing a very hot topic in the poker world right now, women in poker. It's always going on, but particularly right now, it seems. You started with a great picture of yourself looking strong, confident at the table, and then you followed it with several tweets, including the following, and I want to get the words right. So, I could walk into the poker room and focus on the negative. It exists. I have encountered negativity and gender bias many times, but the truth is there has been vastly more positive than negative, not to mention the counterproductivity of focusing on the negative. I appreciate the movement of empowering women in poker. I want women empowered, comfortable, and treated well. This is what drives me to compete and be the best player I can, and I strive to leave a legacy that drives the message home that women are equal in poker. Don't sit down at the poker table as a victim. Sit down like a warrior. So let's take a second. Powerful words. It's incredible, and over these past 40 minutes or so, it's very clear you're a great role model for women in poker, for anyone in poker. Can you elaborate on those thoughts that I just read through on women in the game and how we can get more women involved beyond just sort of like you on your own being, an inspiration for them?
Sure. Thank you for the reaction to that, by the way.
It's legit. It's deserved.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And well, first off, I spent hours writing that. And then I kind of got frustrated because it's something, everyone was talking about it a lot. I feel very strongly and passionate about the topic. I also I try not to spend too much time on social media in general. So I understood, leading up to this tweet, I had spent more time than I would have liked reading threads regarding this topic, which fueled me because I was hearing and seeing things that people were saying that I didn't necessarily think is the best way to deal with the whole topic or discuss the whole topic. So I felt compelled to say, kind of share my input. And I probably could go on, way deeper and way further about the whole topic. I think that to me, there's like a few main principles. I would say, for one thing, what I'm happy that we're seeing less of is marketing geared towards men only. I think that for me, and I think for many women, when you see marketing that is so male oriented, I think that right off the bat turns women away because it's the subconscious message of this is a man's game. So I think that's where I'm really passionate about, okay, we cannot have this type of marketing, whether I don't want to like point fingers specifically. I just think, if you're a poker room and you're trying to post about a poker tournament you're going to run, don't put a picture of a random female in, a skimpy dress to try to promote your poker tournament. Because what that I think it really does show the message of we are targeting the men to come. We don't necessarily want women to come. That, it doesn't necessarily open that. So I think that being sensitive towards marketing in that way is very important. I think that I don't necessarily appreciate the question of how do we get more women in poker. I know that might sound terrible or
It's fine.
insensitive. I think that the better way to phrase that is, or not necessarily phrase that, but the way that I would tackle that is, I don't want any women feeling turned off by poker because of X, Y, and Z, people not treating them well, marketing, things like that, being uncomfortable. You know, I've been in poker rooms where I feel very uncomfortable. I've been in, you know, um, I'll be blunt and open with you. I won something. I can't remember. Oh, the cash game, WPT cash game. They were giving an award for the biggest winner, and I won it. It was Rockstar sponsored, and I had to take a winner's photo with these girls dressed like pretty sexy outfits, and it felt very weird and uncomfortable. And you know, that kind of moment, it was like, wait a, you know, and that's something that's always confused me in a sense too. Like, why are these girls presenting me my winners something? Like, it would make more sense if, you know, the runners of WPT, or, you know, like Matt Savage, like, why isn't he presented? Like, that would be fine with me. And I think that, to me, it kind of goes along with my hopes for poker as well, that I would love for poker to be a respected game, you know, similar to, I always just think of like the PGA, you know, it's so classy, it's respected, everybody's respected in it. I understand that there's overlap with, you know, this degenerate activity with poker that's difficult to, you know, how do we make that exist where it is just this respectable thing? But yes, okay, so marketing and making women feel that, you know, it is an environment where, you know, they're just as invited as men are to come play the poker tournament or whatever it is, and that there isn't this awkward, oh, now you have the girl to present you the trophy, you know, because she's attractive or whatever it is. It's like, I don't know, that sort of part, I think, you know, the people who are hosting, and we have a lot of power to control that. And I think that there's tons of progress in that, actually. I really, really do. So that's one thing. I think, yeah, getting more women in poker, I think that just happens naturally by showing that women can compete. And where I was saying, you know, leaving a legacy, or why I feel inspired to do that, is the way that, you know, when I turned on poker and saw Jennifer Harmon as one of the only poker women in poker, it inspired me to be like, oh, look at her. Like, she's sitting down like a boss. Any women could do that. And I think that, to me, that's way more powerful of just like, you know, Vanessa Selps, like seeing the women who just sat there, like, you know, I don't think for one second when I see them play poker that they think for any reason they're like not as equal as the man they're sitting next to. If anything, I think that they see the power that they have, that they're superior even. And I think Jennifer Tilly is a great example as well. I pointed this out, I think, in the thread. I was just thinking of women who sit down super empowered, and they have like this confidence. And I think that bringing that is so important. And I think, you know, as I'm sure you've played poker, there's always idiots in poker rooms. That sucks, you know? Alex tells me about men who are mean to him, comment about the way he looks in a positive way, sure, sometimes. But, you know, men get all of this too. And I'm not in any way, you know, think that that's okay, that women have to deal with certain, you know, ways that they're treated. I think that's terrible. I think most casinos I've played in, if you went to a floor person, or you know, most people deal with the situation very well. I've never seen it not dealt with well. I'm just saying that I believe in, let's look at what we can control and what your power is. And I think that if we get too focused on, you know, being a minority, then all of a sudden, I don't know, it's just a different vibration, I think, than being, you know, determined to fight that battle. And I think seeing women succeed is like the number one thing that's going to change it. I really, really do. And I'm just saying that from my personal experience. And I can also say that's one of my motivations to play poker tournaments in a public setting. Because if I was only playing poker for money, I would just play cash games. But I'm really playing because I it bothers me that there's no women in a high roller setting, and that I know that having no women in those arenas, what it does is it sends that subconscious message to men, to women, to everybody that, oh, women can't compete at that high level. So to me, it's like, wait, someone needs to step up and show we can do it. You know, Vanessa Selps, she did a great job. I want to do that because I wanted to show like, hey, you're wrong with that. And I think that that's the way to do it, is we have to step up and, you know, show we can. And I really do believe that, you know, I believe a lot of people have had terrible incidences in poker rooms. I have too. I've gotten in fights. I've been in tears. It's happened. But oh my God, I walk into a poker room, and this is true from being popular in poker or not, because even 6 or 7 years ago, there was always men who went out of their way to make me feel more comfortable. And I really, really believe, and you know, this is something with our society too, of like bashing men, that I think is really dangerous. And for the most part, men are motivated to make women's lives better, to be nice. Most men want to be nice to women, and I see men go out of their way all the time. And I think that if you're only focusing on the negative, you miss all the positive. Or rather, if you walked into a poker room and there was one jerk, and I know this is human nature, it's just like, you know, if
like
you
get
remember
one the bad beats, same thing.
Exactly. So I think that if we're going to go and, you know, do a sort of movement of sharing negative stories, I think that it kind of is a disservice to only talk about the negative and then not like also fill it in with, well, wait a second, there is all of this positive, and how do we spread that further maybe? And I think, you know, I've never been in a poker room where there wasn't at least one man who was there to like put a situation to rest, so to speak. And I do think for, you know, something that I think people missed is how you sit down at the poker table and how you present yourself and how you treat other people is also very important too, because I don't know, if someone was called you a bad name or said something to you, were you really nice to them and kind to them to begin with? Because I do think that because some people feel intimidated sitting down at a table, you might bring a bad attitude or bad vibe, so to speak. And I think that, I don't know, to me, I just think it's such a complex issue. I think it's an interesting thing. And I think ultimately everybody wants the same thing. And it's a shame that there was arguments within these Twitter debates, because I'm so certain that, you know, the women who might have responded negatively to what I said, that if I sat down with them face to face, we want the exact same things.
Right. The face to face conversations are always, you know, a notch better. For lack of a better word.
Absolutely.
And I've got to say, you know, it was a big question. You know, you expressed yourself beautifully, very layered, nuanced, and comprehensive answer. Obviously, you know, I think it's awesome that, you know, you're very self-aware as well of your role. You know, you mentioned Jennifer Harmon, you mentioned Vanessa Selps, Jennifer Tilley. I mean, you obviously do belong in that same conversation with those, you know, tremendously accomplished women in poker. And I love that, you know, that is exactly your motivation. You're like, yeah, I'm not just going to go ahead and sit and you're aware of the potential impact that you do and will continue to have. So fantastic answer. And thank you for taking the time to express yourself so beautifully on that, Kristen.
You're welcome.
We now turn to the final segment of the show. We ask all of you guys out there watching, listening in the CardsChat community to see what questions you wanted to ask our guests. We have a dedicated thread in the CardsChat forums for this. So as we announce who our future guests are, please be sure to send in your questions. We start off with Shells. Thank you, Shells, for sending in this one. She's got a couple here. With all of the great wins and results, which one tournament would you consider your favorite?
I think my favorite one, okay. I went to Macau with Alex. It was actually our first poker trip second poker trip we stayed together, but our first poker trip as like an official couple. And it was so funny. Cause I think it's kind of a cute story. I'll share it. So I think what happened was we were getting to Macau, and we were trying to find like Hong Kong dollars or whatever the currency is that we needed to get. And one of our friends was helping us out, but he's like, I can only get you enough for the buy-in today of, I think it was a 10K or 5K. I'm not actually sure because the numbers were all, crazy in this exchange. So we had enough. So our friend helped us out with making sure we were okay for that day, but it would still be a struggle to get more money. So me and Alex were like, all right, we gotta do well in this one. And then that way we were like set for the trip. So we had cash, because it's always annoying on poker trips to like figure out cash for all the events.
Yeah, it's always so much easier when you win, right? You don't have to visit, and even in just dollars, it's nice to not have to visit the ATM, for sure.
Exactly. So I ended up winning that tournament. I beat David Peters heads up, which felt pretty cool because he was a player who I respect, and definitely thought he was way, way above me. It was kind of like that stepping stone of like, okay, wow, I'm playing David Peters heads up. This is a challenge, but I felt up to it and was lucky enough to beat him and to win. And this is like the crazy part. So when I was winning, I think it was a 3-day event or 2-day event, I can't remember. Alex was leading the other tournament that was happening.
Okay.
And he ended up winning that tournament, and he won with the same hand that I won that tournament with, which is crazy. Because like, what are the odds of that? There were 2 big tournaments. We both, going on a poker trip together with anybody, and then actually both of you winning back-to-back tournaments and with the same hole cards. It was crazy. So cool. That was a really fun win. And it was just a fun trip, actually.
Fantastic story. Shells has one more question. What are your favorite things to do in your free time?
Eat. As I said before, I like going to restaurants, gym. I really like working out. I like nature. I think even more so recently, I'm realizing how much I'm loving just stepping away from, the crazy society of technology that we have, and just being away from it.
Okay.
So I think, like hiking, gym, working out. I like doing things that feel good, and traveling. I love traveling. I love seeing new places, eating new foods.
Great hobbies. Nice.
Yeah.
Freddie R87 asks the questions a little bit more in depth. Which stakes, I like this one, which stakes were the hardest for you to climb through? I'm currently playing NL 25, and it has been very hard for me to climb to that level. And I've had to move down 1 or 2 stakes levels several times. What do you do when you find it hard to climb a level, or when you're winning less than expected?
Yeah. Well, I think one thing that's really interesting that was fascinating to me when I first started playing is that when you're playing low limits, your win rate gets so impacted by the rake that there's actually limits that become almost unbeatable. So I can't speak to which ones those are at the moment because I'm not familiar with the rake systems, but I do remember when I moved up to 50 cents a dollar and 1-2, or is it 1-2 and 2-4? I remember one of them, it was like just having the same win rate at the higher stakes. I was actually realizing that so much more because of the rake not being so high. Right. So that's actually one trap that I think is really sad that it happens at lower limits. This is the same if you're playing 1-2 in a casino, you might be smarter if you can try to figure it out to borrow money or something to play a bit higher. Because someone
told me exactly those words not a couple months ago. I've always been 1-2, and I was like, okay, let's give it a shot for that reason.
Yep. Exactly. And it's crazy because you feel like, I went from playing 1-2 as well to 2-5, and you feel that you're like, whoa, I'm winning more and I'm not doing anything different. And I moved up. How is this happening? Right. So I think that's one thing to look at is make sure you look at the rake of the game that you're playing and that it is beatable. Mm-hmm. And I think, finding the person who's successful. Now I'm saying I'm giving advice where that wasn't really the question, but find who is successful at that limit. Okay. And study them, figure out what are they doing. Maybe if you can connect with them and talk to them, look at their game a bit, try to find your own leaks. I think for me, the stake that actually, I feel like I'm kind of in that spot in the last couple of years with high rollers, because it's these high variance spots of moving up. And I've never understood this. We go from 2K buy-in, 5K buy-in to 10K to 25K. It's like, why can't we have something in between? Because this is like a pretty big barrier, you know, from going to 10K buy-ins to 25K buy-ins. The bankroll you need is quite substantial.
I mean, back in the day, I think the WPT 5 Diamond Doyle Brunson Classic was like the 15K. That was like a nice sweet spot in there.
Yes, that is. They should bring that back.
Yeah, right.
So I think that's definitely like kind of the struggle for me at the moment. I think in the past, from 1-2 to 2-4 was a big leap, but I do think that what I was saying about the rate might be a substantial thing. So
yeah, and just like a little add-in, I know the question was asked to Kristen, but one thing I can say as well is, surprisingly to me, because I just never tried it, I was afraid to, when you do jump, at least, you know, on the live from 1-2 to 2-5, the level of player is not necessarily better. You know, and not worse, but not necessarily better. They just happen to have a little more money in their pocket. That's all.
Exactly. And that's what's so cool when you realize that in poker. And I think it's so essential to not psych yourself out, to like put people on pedestals and think that these limits are really high. It's like, no, I mean, I'm playing cash games like recently and just reminding myself of like, wait, the 50-100 game is actually softer than the 10-20 game. It really is.
There was one eye-opening moment. Again, I know I'm getting off on a tangent as well, but it was just like, like an aha moment. I was in Casino Barcelona, and they didn't have 1-2, 1-3. All they had was 5-5 in euros, and I'm like, that's a lot of money. And someone's like, Robbie, there is no lower limit. All the worst players are playing 5-5. Go play. Yep. And it was like, I never thought about it that way. So don't be afraid of the limits. So.
And then you're like, this is amazing. These people are putting this much money in with this. It's like playing like this. Yeah.
It was a couple profitable sessions. I'll say that.
That's awesome.
Mark J. Duck. This is a news. He's never submitted a question before. So thank you very much, Mark J. Duck. Kristen, if you washed up on a desert island with a deck of cards, which poker player would you most want with you and why?
Alex Foxen, because I love him.
Okay, that is fair.
No, I mean, should I try to think of someone else?
If that's the genuine answer, then I don't think so. I think we've kind of gotten the sense that that's.
I'll just say Alex, and not first choice. Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. Crystal's always a great contributor of questions here. What would you? She asks, what would you say is your stronger game, live or online poker? That's a good one.
I think genuinely live, if I'm not in playing high stakes, like high roller setting, and then online if I'm playing a high roller set. Like, I think I'm better online in a high roller setting. And then I think I'm better live versus like in let's just say like, you know, a main event or something where I'm playing with in a field that's a little bit weaker. I don't know the right way to phrase that, but
okay, that's fair. Cool. And our final two questions come from Acid Burn FX, one of the best names on the community. What is the biggest challenge of your life and why?
Wow.
That's not even the last question. Just wait till the last one.
This is deep. Okay. I like it. I mean, I love deep conversation. Yeah. Well, something I guess I just have to go with what's recent is it's so interesting how quickly time flies. And I think it's a challenge to embrace that and realize even just like the decision of what I should be doing and where is my target, if that makes sense. It's like, what's important right now? Should I, have kids or focus on poker, or, how do I make the two work? I think I'm just saying what's relevant right now. I think that's kind of figuring out what I want or what I want to do, that kind of, because I'm 34 and I'm just confused because it feels like a blink ago that I was 20. Like it's actually just, it's just bizarre. Yeah, actually,
it does go by quickly. I can say, and that's certainly a big challenge. So, question correctly and well answered.
Yeah, thank you.
And the final question from Acid Burn FX: what is something amazing that you did, but nobody was around to see it?
That's really interesting. I don't know if he means with poker, with life.
Not necessarily.
Yeah. Huh. I think
Like a bottle flip or something,
yeah. Okay. Yeah, we could go that way. Well, I did get a hole in one in golf, but there was a couple of people there to witness that.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
but still, that was pretty cool. What else? For some reason, what comes to mind is thinking of moments where, and I can't think of anything particular. But my gut kind of what came to mind is the moments where I felt a little bit of like fear or hesitation to do something and did it like where I kind of challenged myself and succeeded. And I'm just trying to think whether that might be like traveling alone somewhere. Like I think that, one of the first EPT stops I actually went to alone and I didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
And I think that, and I actually had moments of like, that felt kind of lonely and not nice.
Sure.
And it was a weird, when I'm walking into like EPT Monte Carlo and I don't know anybody and I was just alone like that. I feel like those little moments in life actually are the most like substantial, because getting a hole in one, that's just fun, or, doing something like that feels great. But those moments that feel a little bit uncomfortable and that you went through on your own and got through, I think that those are really kind of special to me. And yeah, maybe sometimes even just, in a workout and like pushing myself really hard or lifting like, more weight than I've lifted before and, doing that alone. I think that that's kind of, those moments stick out too.
Yeah, it's very, very invigorating. That's for sure. Very insightful reply. Yeah. Thanks to everyone who sent in questions for Kristen Bicknell. Just a friendly reminder once again to all of you in our Cards Chat community, we'd love to see you submit your questions for our future podcast guests in the dedicated thread on the forums. Please be sure to give us a good review on iTunes and spread the word via your social media channels if you like the show. Kristen, this has been a tremendous pleasure speaking with you. Before we let you go, anything else you'd like to tell our audience?
No, I think we talked about a lot of good stuff. Yeah. It's difficult to make it short because there's a lot of deep stuff. And I think, I think what I would just say and what I'm kind of going through myself is just, I think framing things positively and, working hard. I think that that's kind of the things I try to work on every day and remind myself of. And I think, with poker, there's tons of great information and tools out there, and focus on, what you can do to achieve what you want. I really believe in that. And just, what I was saying, picking a target and going for it and making sure all of the steps and small actions that you're taking, because that's one thing is small actions lead up to big things, whether that's, you don't feel like going to the gym that morning. It's like, that's going to change everything, because not just like falling out of routine, but how you might feel after the gym, and then how you treat the people you're with that day, and then how they treat you, and the snowball effect of small actions. That's what something recently someone pointed out or kind of shared with me of that insight, and I thought it was brilliant. And that's kind of what I think it's brilliant. So
nice. And now you're paying it forward. So it's certainly a great message. And you said, you enjoy the deep conversation. I certainly did this one too. Thank you for your time, Kristen. I appreciate it. Thank you all for tuning in once again to another episode of Cards Chat. I'm Robbie Straczynski. You can follow me on Twitter @CardPlayerLife. I wish you all a wonderful day.
Awesome. Thanks, Robbie.